The Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. Agenda review. Anything to add, Kathy?
I do have something to add. I'd like to add it under Carroll County Adult Ed, and that's Esser funds.
Okay, we'll add Esser funds under the Carroll County Adult Ed. Thank you. Okay, the first order of business then would be to approve the minutes of the September 13th school board meeting. We hear a motion to approve. Moved by Dr. Jim, seconded by Tim. Okay, all those in favor. Krista? Tim? Wendy? Stephanie?
Yes.
Dr. Jim? Is out. Charlene? Dana? Yes. And Chair votes aye as well. Second order is to approve the manifests that are being signed tonight. The manifest totals that are being signed, accounts payable, is $1,698,821.63. Payroll is $770,783.47, for a total of $2,469,605.10. Motion by Tim. Seconded by Charlene. Okay, all those in favor. Krista? Tim? Wendy? Stephanie?
Yes.
Dr. Jim? Charlene? Dana? And Chair votes aye as well. Okay, now it's time for public input. Again, public input is 15 minutes. Please keep your comments as short as possible so as many people that want to speak can speak. We'll start with somebody in this room, and then we'll switch to the other room, and we'll try to give equal time to everyone that wants to speak. Again, maximum of 5 minutes per speaker, so anybody that would like to speak from this room, please go up to the mic first. Please state your name and your town that you're from.
All right, my name is Holly Williams O'Coin, and I am from Wolfeboro, New Hampshire.
Thank you.
Live in Wolfeboro, New Hampshire. I will try to keep this short. Thank you to the school board, to our superintendent, and to the Governor Wentworth teachers, staff, and administration who put themselves last in order to keep our children, as well as their own families, safe during these unusual times. Your dedication is commendable. Again, my name is Holly Williams O'Coin, and I am the mother of a kindergartner who attends Carpenter Elementary School. I wanted to share with everyone an experiment that I did today. This morning I woke up at 6:45. Upon waking, I put on a medical grade O2 monitor, and I placed an N95 as well as a cloth mask, which I'm taking off for the first time right now, over my mouth. I have worn both this N95 and cloth mask the entire day alone in my office and in my encounters today with other people. Every 30 minutes, I checked my O2 level with my medical grade O2 monitor, which didn't drop below 98 once today. And I will have everyone know that a safe level is 90 to 100. So mine was at 98. My O2 did not drop. I felt good all day long. Not only during my 1 mile run on my lunch break did my O2 level not drop below 98. While wearing an N95 and cloth masks, I didn't have a hard time breathing or communicating with other people throughout my day. Was it super comfortable? No. Did I survive? Yes. And I did so with above normal oxygen levels. And I am asthmatic. I was born and raised in Wolfeboro, New Hampshire, and I am proud to be a part of such a wonderful community. I have watched our community come together to do great things, and to support one another in ways that go far beyond being neighborly. Although there is still a lot of good in our town happening around us, it saddens me to see the divide now, more than ever, when we need each other and when we need to unite. We need to agree to disagree and do so peacefully without hurtful language. We need to stop and take a look around us. Is this really what we want to be teaching our children? I'd like those of you against masks to take a moment and put yourself in the shoes of a neighbor whose children, grandchildren, and loved ones are at greater risk than your children. Can you speak to them in more kindness and respectful ways? Must you act in anger and create increasingly larger divide in our community? Aren't we all doing our personal best? Can we stop fighting with one another for a few months so our teachers can focus on teaching and our children can stop being put in the middle? Since not everyone can walk a mile in someone else's shoes, I invite you to walk a mile in mine. My son was 2.5 when he had his first seizure, and he almost died in my arms. It was 11 minutes long, and it was the worst night of my life. He is now 5 years old and has since had 14 seizures despite being medicated. He has 5 doctors at Boston Children's, and I will spend my life trying to keep him safe. Most of these seizures were triggered by the common cold. Every time he has a seizure, his brain and development is affected, and he is at risk of SUDAP, which for those of you who are unfamiliar, is an acronym for sudden and unexpected death of someone with epilepsy. It is more common than SIDS, and it is the cause of 1 in every 1,000 seizure-related deaths in the United States. About 50,000 people die a year from that. Because I care about the health of my compromised son, as well as the health and well-being of every child in this community, trust me when I say I will no longer allow for the voices of the anti-maskers to be the loudest in the room. As stated at the August 2020 board meeting, by a concerned citizen, statistically, 2 kids in our district could potentially die from COVID-19. Because my son's condition, he could very well be one of those 2 kids, end up dying from complications of COVID-19. Sharing this story to you tonight isn't easy, but I'm hoping it will be worth it. I ask that we stop fighting the school board on the mask policy that is in place simply to protect our children. I know my fears are real and legitimate, and that I am not alone. I know that the majority of our community supports our children wearing masks, which is why they aren't all here tonight. They support the Governor Wentworth Regional School District mask rules, which is okay.
Thank you.
Please let me finish. It's really important. Representative of the recommendations of every accredited medical organization in the world. As executive director of a local nonprofit, I can relate to our superintendent in the tough position she has been put in. She is doing her very best in doing what she believes is best for our children. Every time someone fights her on the mask policy or says something rude, it is taking the attention away from many important roles she has. In this situation, the one who is losing out the most are our children. And as the school board cannot put in their full effort to our children if we continue this. As long as any group continues to attack the school board, they will not be able to put 100% of their attention where it needs to be, which is something I am no longer going to sit by and let happen. This rude behavior needs to stop, and we need to set our personal beliefs aside and support our school board and superintendent as they do the job that the community elected them to do. The real reason I'm here tonight is because I made a request to the school board at the September meeting. My request was not discussed or considered. I am here tonight to request once again that the school board consider adding to their mask policy a 5-day grace period when COVID-19 rates in Carroll County drop to moderate or low. As this policy stands, the COVID rates in our community drop to moderate low and masks become optional the very next day. A 5-day grace period is not only just a basic and reasonable request, it is one that would benefit our children, give everyone time to prepare for the change and provide the school board with a cushion in the event the levels increase shortly after they pull the masks. It's a win-win for everyone. If our kids wearing a mask in school is the worst things that happen to them, we are all very blessed. I hope you know that the reason the majority isn't filling the room tonight is because they are in support of the mask rules you have put into place to protect our children. And I guarantee you, if masks become optional before things get safe and vaccines become available for children 5 and older, that these seats will be filled with people who share my opinions. Thank you again for allowing me the opportunity to share with you tonight. And with all due respect to everyone in the room, I will be leaving now because I need to get home to my children to help my husband put them to bed. And I don't think I can stand the opinions of those who don't want to be part of protecting our children. Thank you.
Thank you, Holly. Okay, we're going to switch to the back room now, and we'll certainly give you equal time that was taken on this in this room as well.
At least 6 minutes.
It's John Eastman, Middleton, New Hampshire. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. So trying to debate science, facts, anecdotal evidence, or observation seems to be an act of futility. This board appears to be quite aware of the reasoning for the masks in stay open plans. The attempts to silence opposition are quite obvious. I have reason to believe that this may be a little bit more about money. At the May 2021 school board meeting in my town, Middleton, the board asked questions regarding the specifics of Esser funds and got little by way of answers other than following the current laws and regulations was necessary. She also stated specifically that the Esser fund applications were not something that she does by saying to the chairman at the meeting in regards to the application process that I don't do that. Yet on June 3rd, 2021, she did exactly that, a detailed form in which she answered questions regarding masking, physical distancing, etc., that were not proposed to the Middleton School Board, nor were they adhered to by Middleton. This appears to be a gross display of coercion and lies, but that's my opinion, as well as a clear motivation to enforce these draconian policies. Secondly, as for the rest of the board, I was recently made aware that you all believe that I personally am a threat, that somehow my angry emails, because I was pretty angry at you guys, threatened you. This is only true if that you believe a threat to your power, jurisdiction, or character is somehow a physical threat. I'm offended by your disregard for my own personal integrity and any dubious assertion that I'm violent or dangerous. I was further aggravated by your lack of response in kind, forgoing any opportunity for an explanation or debate. The only response I received was a police presence at every meeting I have attended since. It's a complete disregard for my concerns as a parent. Further, I find it disturbing that you seem all to be falling in line directly with a recent letter to the United States President, asserting the narrative that parents who oppose your irrational rules and policies should be labeled domestic terrorists. Mr. Whitmer, it is clear to me that this board and the policies adopted by it are motivated by money or something more nefarious, and the public is of little concern to you. This does not move the conversation towards unity, but further sows division. It is clear to me that your expectation is to govern a slave society, not a free one, and that your collective fear of the public furthers the suggestion that you know that what you're doing is wrong. I'll leave you with 2 quotes. One is from Proverb 28:1, "The wicked flee when no one pursues, but the righteous are bold as a lion." And secondly, Benjamin Franklin, "He who is willing to trade his liberty for a small amount of temporary security deserves nor will get either." Thank you.
If there's someone else in the back that would like to speak, we have a few more minutes. Okay, seeing nobody coming up in the back room, we'll take someone else from this room.
Good evening.
State Representative Glenn Cordelli from Tufton Borough. Last time I was here, I asked about the Esser funds. The Governor Wentworth District had been allocated $10.5 million. I did not get any information from the board, but I know the board is muzzled, so I went and got the information on my own. And from Esser 1 funds, the district is getting $539,307.27. From Esser 2 funds, it's $2,721,987.74. Esser 3 funds, which is an allocation of over $6.5 million. The district is out of compliance with federal law in that you missed the filing deadline for those funds. Now, I know that that's a technical compliance issue and that you can still submit a plan for that fund, for those funds. But I think that the people have a right to know how you're going to spend this money. And the town officials around here, when you're preparing a budget, are going to want to know how you're spending these federal funds. And this is the this is the Department of Education submission form to go along with your plan for Esser 3 funds. And I'll point out Roman numeral 3 requires information on your public engagement. What input from the public are you receiving for use of these funds? And that's a federal requirement. Section 5 is how you are going to address student learning. What is more important than that? So I would encourage the board and the district to make available information on how you are planning to spend these funds, and with any plan you submit for Esser 3 funds, to get the public input. Trust requires transparency.
There will be an update on that during the academic, during the committee reports from the Building and Maintenance Committee.
Glenn? Day, you would get a very full update. I would like to point out to you that we addressed this very thing at our August meeting. So if you look back at those minutes, you'll find a lot of detail there.
Is there anyone in the back that would like to speak?
We're in the shower room, so.
Go ahead. We're ready for you.
All right, straight from the shower room, Jessica Williams. Here we are. So I wanted to add to what Glenn said. Upon my reading of the eligibility requirements to receive Esser funds, I don't know exactly what section it's in. It's not in front of me at the moment, but public comment is a requirement for eligibility, and unfortunately, you're also not in compliance with that rule either. And I'll encourage everyone to go to the November budget meetings for this school board, because now that they have $10.5 million more in their coffers and they are actually hiring more staffing, if you read their grant requests, they are hiring a lot more staff, and Kathy said at another meeting that that was not actually happening. So we are getting $10.5 million that's going into our budget. We know what happens when budgets get bigger. They never get smaller.
Thank you. I think we've hit 15 minutes for public input, so we'll move on to the rest of our meeting, and we'll have another public input session at the end of our meeting. So we'll move on to the superintendent's report for the Carroll County Adult Education report.
With us tonight, and there's no one that's more passionate about the adult education program than Crystal, or more committed. She's done wonderful things for the program. The program is incredibly valuable and offers many opportunities and services that might surprise you. So Crystal is going to talk with us about that and give us an overview about what is offered through the program. So welcome, Crystal, and thank you for being here.
Thank you guys for having me. I'm really excited. I love talking about my programs. So like Kathy said, my name is Crystal Sawyer. I'm the Director of Carroll County Adult Education. I am the state's Adult Education Hiset Mentor. I'm a member of the Disabilities Committee for Adult Ed, and I'm currently on the Carroll County Youth Suicide Prevention Team. I am also a grant writer for our nonprofit, Friends of Carroll County Adult Tutorial Program, and I also write for nonprofits throughout New England. So Carroll County Adult Education is a WIOA, which is Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act partner. We are located in Tamworth on Route 16. We offer classes year-round with SAU 49 as our fiscal agent. So starting at the age of 16, we offer an adult diploma, Hiset, English second language classes, and tutoring, basic literacy classes, and we help with everything post-secondary. So we help with soft skills, job skills, college applications, job applications, and we are partnered with the New Hampshire Employment Security. We connect our students to Apprenticeship New Hampshire, Work Now New Hampshire, and other WIOA programs. In addition to being a member of the Chamber of Commerce, CCAE is active in the following community groups: Mount Washington Valley Job Development Coalition, Carroll County Regional Coordinator Council, Northern Carroll County Providers Network, United Ossipee Roundtable, NAMI New Hampshire, and Carroll County Coalition for Public Health. In the past, we've offered free risk prevention training for suicide prevention, substance misuse, and mental health. These community partnerships have been vital to our learners, taking full advantage of transportation to and from school, free certification courses, veteran assistance, and basic literacy classes. We also service clients, from any recovery center in Carroll County. This year, since July 1st, which is the start of our fiscal year, we have 30 16 and 17-year-old students enrolled from Kingswood, Kennett, Molten Borough Academy, and Interlakes. Over 15% of those are from Kingswood, and we have 31 students enrolled that are 18 and over. So we finished out the year last year with over 115 students, and since July 1, I already have 61 students. So, we have a huge influx in students this year. Specifically for our students that are over 18, we have amazing volunteer tutors that actually go out to places like libraries and work with the students, and they work around their work hours and their work schedule. Our Carroll Academy is our adult high school. It's a 20-credit state diploma. Again, it starts at age 16. It is accepted at all community colleges, trade schools, and most state schools, and pretty much every employer takes our adult diploma. This semester, we're offering ancient honeybee and beekeeping. That's offered online. It's being taught by the instructor. We have an English 1 class that's hybrid, and we added in Future Leaders of New Hampshire, which is done in person in Tamworth. All other diploma classes are offered online. And you have to be self-directed, and you have an online facilitator. So we're hoping to add a basic literacy class and the certified hospitality class that we teach at the end of the semester. And next semester, we're hoping to add digital literacy classes and Cricut Maker marketing classes. So we are partnered with White Mountains Community College. So if a student is enrolled with us and they are a junior or a senior through the STEM program, they get 2 free classes per semester. Last year, we had a student graduate from our adult diploma program, and then he was also a sophomore when he entered college. So it was fantastic. And we love that. And so I also teach a hospitality certification course. If you go to White Mountains after taking my course, it is in lieu of their intro to hospitality. So you automatically already have that 3-credit course. So at this time, we are running one-on-one ESL, English Second Language Tutoring, and I also teach ESL classes at the Eastern Slope Inn Hotel for their employers and Attitash, and I'm hoping this year I can kind of branch out to other hotels in the area and see if they need any ESL classes. The second program that we have is the Hiset Program, and that is basically a different acronym than GED. So in 2013, the state of New Hampshire bought Hiset, which is just a different brand of GED. So I use them interchangeably because people know the acronym GED. So it consists of taking tests in 5 subjects: your reading, writing, social studies, and science. And if a student comes in and they would like to pursue their adult diploma, but they only need a few credits, they can actually take a Hiset exam and get credits for that. So we have a lot of kids that do that. And we just recently started back up in the Carroll County House of Corrections, our Hiset program, so we're there too. So not only is Hiset accepted at most jobs, but more and more colleges are accepting the Hiset. All community colleges, all trade schools, and a lot of state schools are accepting it. Because of this, if a student enters and enrolls in our school and they have 10 or less credits, I actually steer them in the direction of Hiset because a lot of people and colleges accept it. So for our students that are 16 and 17 years old, last year, I partnered with Tri-County Transit to provide transportation to and from school. And also the SAU provided transportation for our Kingswood students, which was wonderful. This year, because we have a low amount of students that need transportation, I have decided to partner with libraries that are actually closest to my students. So classes will start in Wolfeboro, Ossipee, and Conway. So it's much easier for the parents to get them there, and it's better for us all so they don't have to drive to Tamworth. Let's see, where was I? Okay, yes, the Hiset. People often ask, and even the kids when they come in, how long is this going to take me? It is going to take you from 2 days to 2 years. It really matters how much work you want to put into it. So if there is a 16 or 17-year-old that's in Kingswood that's interested in our programs, you have to go to guidance and speak with your guidance counselor, and then they will make the appointment and set up all the paperwork. So that's what you do if you are 16 and 17. 18 and over, you can just call us and you can enroll with us. So at the end of the school year, we have a full cap and gown graduation. SAU 49, because you're our fiscal agent, you provide the caps and gowns and the diplomas. So they do say Kingswood, Governor Wentworth Regional School District, the diplomas. As far as my funding is state and federal, and I was cut 65% a year and a half ago, and my enrollment only doubles. So I try to write grants and I try to find money elsewhere. So at this time, that's what I am trying to do. So that is our program or programs. If anybody has any questions, I can answer them.
Thank you so much.
Crystal, thank you so much, and I want to say that under your leadership, the program has really flourished. You're doing some creative things like the ESOL work with the employers, and I know you're also looking at some internships, and it's an awesome idea to have some of the instruction in the local library. So really great job, and thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you, I really appreciate it. Thanks, you guys.
Thank you. Okay, if I can take a half a minute between our next agenda item. We are extremely happy to have a student representative on the board for the first time in over a year. And I'd like to welcome Fallon Peacock. Fallon Peacock is our representative. Fallon is quite distinguished. She has taken several AP classes, was a member of the Future Business Leaders of America. She has played varsity field hockey and lacrosse for over 4 years, and she is a member of the National Honor Society. She has volunteered with the Abenaki Girls Lacrosse Program and has been a member of the Lions Club. So, Fallon, welcome to the school board. Appreciate that.
Okay. The next item on the agenda is Esser. And I'm going to go through, we talked about Esser funds in quite a bit of detail at our August 3rd meeting, including how the funds were to be spent. But I'm going to review that again for everyone. These are funds that have been allocated to the schools from the federal government for financial assistance during COVID. The funds have been allocated in 3 phases and are intended to assist schools with certain circumstances associated with the pandemic, such as personal protective equipment, staffing, safety in school buildings, keeping schools open, supporting academic and social emotional growth. You may recall, and I was going to say, you may recall that a gentleman asked questions, and that was the gentleman that spoke tonight, Mr. Cordelli, at the last meeting. And again, we did review this at our August 3rd meeting. So let's start with Esser 1. Esser 1 was primarily for the purpose of personal protective equipment, technology, and to make it possible for us to be remote, cleaning supplies, and an increase in the school nurse's time in one of our schools. It was a school that only had a part-time nurse, which wasn't going to work very well during COVID. So the bulk of the money was spent that way. If you would like a more detailed accounting, you can go right to our website. The grant is posted on the website. So now, Glenn's figures were accurate. The project was $539,307, and $460,830 of that has been paid, but the rest of it is encumbered. So now on to Esser 2. Esser 2 priorities are targeted toward academic achievement, and these priorities are set by, you have to spend the money in certain ways based on what the federal government requires, and there's a certain set aside for certain kinds of things. So for Esser 2, the priorities are targeted toward academic achievement and social emotional learning, including, and for us, additional technology, curriculum materials, and project managers in math and reading, and overall curriculum at the high school. And those are the positions that we discussed at the August 3rd meeting. We have a math project manager in each building, and we have an English language arts person at the high school, as well as a curriculum coordinator. The curriculum work is tied to professional development and consultation for staff over the period of the grant, and with the New Hampshire Learning Initiative Group, which also does work for the New Hampshire Department of Education. And finally, we had an extensive summer school program this year, and the grant covered that cost. And we do anticipate having an extensive summer school program next year as well, because we do want to make sure that we're accelerating our students' learning. So that figure is $2,928,158.41, and $2,770,128.05 is budgeted, and right now we have some additional monies that we'll be putting toward personal protective equipment, because we're starting to find that we need some more of that. Yes, yeah. So each of these grants, Jack just was mentioning that each of these grants have a different period where, so they're not just all for this year. So the Esser 1 project is until 2023. Esser 2 is 2023. And then I'm going to talk about Esser 3. And Esser 3 is a project from now until 2024. So also I should mention that the Esser 2 grant is also posted on the website. The Esser 3 grant has not yet been completed. It's a much larger grant than the other two at over $6 million, and we are seeking public input. I know the Building and Maintenance Committee representative is going to talk a little bit about what our discussion was at the last Building and Maintenance Committee meeting. So you will see that there's a description of Esser funds on the website, and so if you would like to have public input regarding what you think that money should be used for, there's an email address that you can go to. and then I will be able to access that, and I will share it with the board. So a little more detail on ESSER 3. That grant has not been completed, but we have set some priorities. The two priorities that the Building and Maintenance Committee have discussed and we'll be talking about tonight with the board are HVAC system in our buildings and dark fiber connections. In our elementary schools, with our summer schools expanding, it makes sense to get all of our schools up to snuff with this money in the same way that our buildings here at the complex are. So again, that will be something that you'll hear more about from the Building and Maintenance report. And then, of course, the dark fiber, that is ultimately going to save the district money. So we have until 2024 to expend the funds, and so we will start the writing probably, I would say, somewhere in December, January. Okay, next item is a COVID update. As the community knows, Carroll County remains in substantial transmission. The data for the school district this month are as follows. The week of September 7th to 10th, we had 6 students test positive. I'm sorry, I should say 6 individuals, not necessarily students. The week of the 11th to the 17th, 5. The week of the 18th to the 24th, 21. And the week of the 25th to the 1st, 17. There are also some changes in the Stay Open plan for you to vote on tonight. I know you've all had a chance to read it. The changes are to keep us in line with what DHHS is recommending. The most significant change is that DHHS is now recognizing only those in a household as a contact for quarantining purposes. So the close contact language has been changed in our plan to refer to household contact rather than close contact. The household contact definition has also been included. Close contact is still in the plan because the school nurses do inform parents if there has been a close contact at school, so parents can monitor their child for symptoms. Also included is if an individual is within 90 days of having COVID, they do not need to quarantine, even if they are a household contact. They follow the same guidelines as someone who's vaccinated. The last significant change is that DHHS is advising us to accept the Binax home test. This is a fluid situation, and I suspect that we will be making other changes based on the changes that DHHS makes as they learn more about the virus and as the status of the transmission changes. Do you want to talk at all about that before we move on?
Any discussion on the Stay Open plan as it's presented tonight? Obviously, those are the few changes that are made, and this is a moving target. Obviously, next month we'll have another update as well to continue to change as DHHS changes their status on some of these items as well. Stephanie?
I have a consideration for the board, and it's related to the duration of the quarantine for household contacts, which is, according to DHHS, should be 10 days. In our plan, it suggests that looking at page 6, so under points 1 and 2 on page 6.
Yep.
So DHHS recommends that students should quarantine, or staff, for 10 days from last exposure. And as Kathy said, if you're vaccinated, there's no need to quarantine. In looking at the CDC website, there is some discrepancy between the CDC and the DHHS website regarding the duration of the quarantine. There's a science brief that did predictive modeling regarding the risk of transmission each day into a quarantine. And they provide, the CDC, but not the DHHS, provides provisions under which it may be appropriate to end a quarantine after 7 days, in recognition of the fact that extended quarantines can be a social, emotional, mental, and sometimes financial burden to students and their families. So with the discrepancy between the DHHS and the CDC, I'm asking the board to engage in discussion about the duration of quarantine for household contacts, and possibly consider it to be changed from 10 days to 7 days if there's a negative COVID test in hand taken day 5 or later.
Any discussion on that?
I would just like to make a comment about that. I'm a bit cautious about this because CDC defines contacts differently. The CDC contacts are contacts with anyone that's within 6 feet of you for 15 minutes, cumulative over 24 hours. So their standard for contact is much, much higher than New Hampshire standard. And I'm a little concerned with New Hampshire standard being only household contacts that I would feel like I would want some medical advice on this before that change would be made.
Okay, anyone else? Okay. Dr. Jim, you wanted to get a flip you.
Oh, there it goes. One thing I'd like to mention is when it comes to PCR testing, which is what they require, you can get it on the 5th or 7th day, but it takes 3 to 5 days to get the processing done. The state of New Hampshire hasn't been exactly up to snuff on getting it done more rapidly. In fact, this past week they had a delay of about 2 days in their courier service to get the services to UNH or to Plymouth. So it really comes a moot point. You can go 10 days without the test. We can go 5 to 7 days, but the test is going to take 3 to 5 days to be processed. So the argument becomes is which one works out better. Not sure either of them are going to be just about equal.
The predictive modeling assumes testing on day 5, 6, or 7 at the science brief.
What I'm referring to, Stephanie, is the fact that the PCR test itself requires 3 to 5 days to be processed.
I understand.
And that's cumulative beyond the time of the 5 to 7 days. So you have a test done on the 7th day. If it's a 3-day response, it's 10 days. Doesn't matter whether you tested or not.
I mean, currently our district does accept rapid tests as well, but they would be at an out-of-pocket expense currently, because you can't, this is just for asymptomatic people, you know, if you're still asymptomatic. Like Medicaid does not cover, or most insurance carriers don't cover a rapid test for asymptomatic persons. That would be at an out-of-pocket cost. The reason I'm just asking the board to think about this is that there is a concern, I have a concern about social, emotional, and academic impacts of extended absences.
I would just like to see the guidance. I mean, what's worse? I mean, the CDC is supposed to.
As Kathy said, the thresholds are different and there are discrepancies, and so I think it's up to us as a board to really look at what is best for our students. Holistically, we have to look at their physical health, but we also have to look at their other aspects. It's so difficult to, but I think balance is really important.
And I'm certainly fine with moving forward, if you need a motion or whatever, to change that to 7 pending your review with the the medical team that you've been working with. And if they say that we could, then at least the vote would be there to move it. If not, it would stay,
It would stay at
stay
10, yeah.
the way it is.
I think,
I was going to say, would it be better to do that research and get that input and have an official vote next month or next meeting to make it official, depending on that, rather than having it kind of a gray area, voting to reduce it?
I'd
Maybe.
support that. I would support that. Waiting until we get some sort of a ruling from, or advice from our medical experts that we rely on before we actually change the duration of the quarantine.
Yeah, but I think we can get it. Kathy has access to them. They have meetings monthly.
Yeah, I agree that I think we could move forward with reducing the number down to 7, Tiffany suggested, pending that review. And if the review comes back that it needs to stay 10, we just keep it at 10. But the motion could be that way, to allow it to move if the medical review says that that's possible.
I would bring this to the COVID advisory task force that has 3 physicians and 2 nurses. Yeah.
So,
I have a copy of the brief that I was referencing, if you'd like that, and I could also email it.
I have it, Stephanie.
okay, so if that's the case, do we want to have a motion on the floor then to authorize reducing the time to 7 days, pending the outcome of the advice from the doctors involved with the COVID task force?
To be clear, I'm recommending 7 days with the testing as well. So as Dr. Jim said, that there would need to be a negative test.
Right. I mean, if it takes time in the
Right,
career.
and then that can be taken on day 5, 6, or 7. So I want to make a motion to suggest that quarantine for a household contact may be ended after day 7 with a negative test, pending review of our medical advisory team.
Okay, Linda, do you have that? Okay, everybody understand what the motion is? Okay, Stephanie made the motion. Jim, you seconded it? Okay, all those in favor then of the motion that's on the floor to reduce the time to 7 days along with the testing as specified. Krista? Tim?
Yeah.
Wendy?
Yes.
Stephanie? Stephanie?
A moment. Would it be okay if Fallon were to share?
Well, she could certainly share, and then
able
if
to
we
share.
need to amend the...
I just didn't want to.
No, she certainly have input. Obviously, she's not voting on it, but she can certainly have input.
I would just like to say that I do support this one, just because I have had COVID and been out of school, and it was very hard to catch up on work when not in school. And even now that we're in school, like full-time, not online, I think changing it from 10 days to 7 will be very beneficial to kids that are out of school for less time.
Thank you. Thank you for your input. Okay,
Yes.
okay. Dr. Jim?
Yes.
Darlene?
Could I hear the motion again, please?
Well, go ahead. Or do you want to read it, Linda?
What I have is to adjust the quarantine for household contacts to 7 days pending advice from the COVID management advisory team.
And also
I think it's supposed to include a testing component.
yes, and also to include a negative PCR test. Correct.
Got that now. Thank you.
And the negative test would have to be received prior to the end of the 7 days, correct? I'm just trying to understand.
You can have the
Right,
test.
that information would need to be provided to the school nurse, the test results, as is currently what we do.
Okay, so, just so I'm clear, someone has had contact, household contact, and they're automatically supposed to quarantine for 7 days, assuming the motion passes, they're supposed to quarantine for 7 days, and so they would have to be tested probably on day 3 or 4 to get the results back. At least that's what Huggins told me when I had.
So it would have to be administered on day 5.
If it's administered on day 5, and if the test that Huggins was doing told me it was going to take 3 to 5 days to get the results. So if you're tested on day 5 and you don't get the results for 5 days, then you can't go back to school on day 7.
So that's a PCR test. There are other tests. They would be at an out-of-pocket cost.
Right, the rapid test is an out-of-pocket cost, so if
Right.
somebody
Okay,
wanted...
so if they chose to do a rapid test, which you can get the results back in like 20 minutes.
Right.
Okay.
And as Kathy said, there is potentially opportunity to facilitate with testing for those families with financial challenges, so that we could, the idea is to get students, to keep students safe, but also to get them back in school possibly a few days earlier.
Okay, and the motion clarifies that this is pending approval from our medical people.
Recommendation from the
Okay.
medical staff, yes.
Got it.
So is that a yes? Yeah, okay. Dana? Yes. And chair votes yes as well on that, okay.
Thank you. All right, and the rest of the plan?
Yes, I need a motion then to move forward with the stay open plan as amended now with the last motion.
So moved.
A move by Dr. Jim, seconded by Tim. Okay, all those in favor. Krista? Tim? Yes. Wendy? Stephanie?
Yes.
Dr. Jim?
Yes.
Darlene? Dana?
Yes.
Chair votes aye as well. Thank you.
Great,
Okay.
thank you. And the next item is total enrollment. Well, more than total enrollment, just a snapshot of our enrollment, which we always do on October 1st. Right now, our total enrollment is 2,190, which is down from last year. Last year, we had 2,294. It's a net loss of 104 students. It's really hard to determine exactly why this is the case, whether it's just difficult to discern whether it's a pattern or if it's COVID, online learning options like BLACs, the new voucher law, all of it may be having an impact on our enrollment, or it could be primarily demographics. It's just really very difficult to know. The pattern is uneven. Grades kindergarten, grade 5, grade 7, grade 9, and grade 10 enrollments are up from last year. And it's the other grade levels that have shown a decrease. The vocational enrollment is up by 20, which we always like to see. So again, it's really uneven, and there's been so much change over the past 2 years that it's very difficult to know exactly what those numbers mean for the long term. Next item is budget timeline. So the week of October 18th begins the budget process with meetings with, I'll be meeting with the business manager, the assistant superintendent, and the principals, and each principal will discuss what their building needs are and what their budget requests are. Then the next step is November 16th, 17th, and 18th at 6 p.m. at Crescent Lake School. We'll start our initial budget discussions, and the principals will be present each of those 3 nights, so there'll be a group that will present what we've talked about to the Finance Committee. And then the Finance Committee does its work, and on December 6th is the preliminary budget adoption. January 10th is the budget hearing and final adoption. And then January 11th is the last date for collective bargaining and petition warrant articles. January 31st is the last date to post the warrant, budget, and the default budget. And January 19th through the 28th are filing dates for school district officers. The deliberative session is February 5th, and voting is March 8th. Okay. The next item, even though it's October, you never know when we're going to get some snow. So it's always, I try to inform parents really early about what our procedure is. So I'm just going to read this letter, which reviews the what happens when we have a lot of snow and the roads are bad. Before the winter weather is upon us, I want to remind you of the procedures we use to make the decision to either hold or cancel school. Please remember the final decision as to whether or not children come to school is up to parents. We monitor the weather forecast daily. The decision making for a delay or a snow day begins around 4 a.m. When a weather event is anticipated, our transportation supervisor is monitoring both the Maine and New Hampshire weather forecasts beginning at 4 a.m. for the road conditions. The transportation supervisor is in touch with all the road agents in all of our communities for road conditions, as well as plans for plowing, salting, and sanding. The Stratford and Carroll County Dispatch are also called to provide information on road conditions based on police calls, accidents, etc., and communication with the bus drivers for conditions in their areas is ongoing. Additionally, we have a service called Precision Weather, which targets weather and road conditions in our specific area. It's not uncommon for WMUR to be reporting conditions that may be true for much of the state, but not targeted or accurate for our specific region. The decision to hold school is based on all of this information. School is held only in the event that the assessment indicates that buses can safely pass over the roadways. Safety is the #1 priority in making this decision. If the roads are not expected to be in good condition, in other words, buses cannot pass safely by the time the bus routes normally begin, but they are expected to improve to an acceptable standard within 2 hours, then the policy is to delay school for 2 hours. If it is determined that road conditions will not be safe by 7:15, then school will be canceled. Every effort is made to get a message to parents between 5:15 and 5:35 a.m., delivered through the parents' chosen option of voicemail, text, or email. These messages are for convenience. However, even with the most reliable system, we are still dependent on satellite technology, electricity, and the internet to get a message to parents. There's always the possibility that any one of these could have problems, or all of them could have problems. So, if you don't receive a message, please check Channel 9, WMUR, or Channel 6, WSCH, which lists the information about school closings. WOKQ also lists closings on their website, and several radio stations still broadcast the names of schools that are closed. It's important for people to know that we are geographically the largest district in the state, and it's impossible for us to know the conditions on every road. We're not a city district in a compact area, and that's why we ask parents to use their discretion. If in a parent's estimation the roads from their location are not safe, then they should keep their children home from school. Students will be allowed to make up any work that has been missed, and their absence will be excused. School will proceed remotely on snow days and/or emergency days when the buildings are closed, except for this year, we will have one traditional snow day, which will be determined on what kind of precipitation we get. So if it's icy and rainy and very slick, it probably will be a remote day. If it's good snowman building snow, it will probably be a snow day. And that's it. That's the end of my report. And Jack, the next thing is the New Hampshire School Boards Association.
Okay, the School Board Association is having its annual delegate assembly a week from this coming Saturday, the 16th, and I'll be the delegate. I'm on the board as well, so I'll be the delegate voting on the new resolutions that are being proposed. I know we reviewed those last week, or last month rather. So if there's any input before next week, please let me know, and I'll share that with the rest of the delegates at the assembly on the 16th. That's really all I have. I don't have anything else under my report. So let's move on to committee reports, academic affairs, and I think that's going to be Krista.
All right, for academic affairs, it's that time of the year when the state and federal governments have decided to change their laws, and so it's put Heather in the position of needing to look at our policies and make sure everything is in line with the new laws and the changes that the state and the federal government have made. So in doing that, she did a wonderful job in presenting the kinds of things that need to be taken out. And so what I'd like to do with the board is simply to present the major things that we discussed in our committee meeting. One of the big changes that the laws had us look at was to make sure that all discipline is the same for all kids, and that there are exceptions or new sets of rules that are outlined in the policy as we're looking at them as a first read for all IEP kids or all kids with 504 plans. So because of those two situations, they now have articulated the exceptions and the processes to be taken with them. So that's the big change, number one. Number two was looking at long-term suspensions. And the big change that has come up is that after 10 days, that if a child has been suspended for 10 days, at one time that is, there needs to be an intervention plan that needs to be formalized, and that would include teachers, administrators, counselors, parents will be invited, obviously, to that meeting, and those intervention plans would be in place before the student returns after those initial 10 days, hopefully so it doesn't reach a point where you're looking at 20 days of suspension. One of the big things that we're looking at was all the administrators, in fact, will be trained on all of the changes by the district's lawyers, so that will all take place. In a technical vein, we're looking at making our statements gender neutral. So instead of looking at his or hers, the wording will be changed to their. So that will be a change that is taken. And the other thing that we're going to look at under student discipline is to look at what is or is not listed as a weapon. So that is another thing. And the primary point of that was to be looking, because it didn't articulate knives as weapons, and so we want to make sure that we have guidelines for ourselves. The next policy that we looked at was the professional dress code. Primary point of this is to make sure that teachers and people within our building look professional and that they will not wear clothes that make other people feel uncomfortable. That was the whole point of it. And so, with that being said, the other points that we looked at are, under the dress code as it is, it says that people cannot wear sneakers, and that will be removed. We talked about being on your feet that many hours of the day on cement floors, and not allowing sneakers is not acceptable. The next thing was blue jeans were not acceptable, and they are going to be acceptable as long as they are in professional shape. That's the way to put it. And it says that shorts are not acceptable, but shorts will be acceptable as long as they are more dress shorts, not athletic attire. After that, we went on and we looked at the student dress code. And that was really interesting because there were things like, it says in there that the students cannot wear headgear. And so we're going to work on the wording so that we are inclusive of headgear that would be culturally or religious respectful. So a yarmulke is headgear, and obviously would be an acceptable kind of headgear that kids could wear or adults could wear in school. That's just one of many examples that we talked about. The other thing that we talked about around that is some people that may be going through cancer or other medical situations certainly have a right to wear a headgear, and it shouldn't even need to be asked for permission to do that. We also are going to be looking at, under the student dress code, look at how to include wording so that subtle, inappropriate innuendos are not included on their t-shirts. And what was the example that you gave?
Anybody else a child of the 90s?
It's co-ed naked.
The co-ed naked sports.
So it's sometimes kids are very clever, or marketers are very clever, and we want to make sure that their subtle innuendos do not skip by us. Finally, I thought that would be good. Let me just see. It's sort of an initiation. I don't remember what the last one was. It was wording from... Oh, it was public access to information. And in the policy, right now it states that anyone that is wanting public access to information certainly has it. If they want copies of things, about this a little, and wait till next time we meet or now, that they would need to pay 10 cents per copy, and that is the price that has been there forever and a day. And so when we were talking about it, we talked about needing to make sure that we cover the costs of having someone needing to take and stop doing the job that they've been hired to do, and to take this on to produce copies. So we need to talk about how much we want to look at in charging for that. And the other part under that was when someone has in fact asked to be able to look at information, one of the things we need to look at is if someone asks to look at a textbook, well, obviously we're not going to copy a textbook for them. So what would be the procedures and the format that we will put in place to make sure that it's accessible to somebody? And the other piece that we need to look at is what's the maximum number of days that we have in which to respond to the request. So that's about as far as we got on the things that we want to look at for a first read. Members of the committee, did I forget anything? Yep. Okay, the other thing I need for us to do is there were 5 other policies. The policy is student rights and responsibilities, the student code of conduct, and the code of conduct needs to be reaffirmed. Weapons on school property needs to be reaffirmed, and the pupil safety and violent prevention and bullying needs to be reaffirmed. There have not been any changes to any of these policies, and they are in line with what we're doing and the law. So what I would ask the board to do is to take and look over those 4 last policies to make sure they're clear in your mind, and we need to reaffirm that at our next meeting. And at our next meeting will be the second reading of the student discipline and due process, the professional dress code, the student dress code, and public access to district records.
Thank you, Krista. And if there's anybody that reads through any of this and would like to talk to Heather about any other changes that they see, please get with Heather before our next meeting so all those can be discussed, and then we can have second reading and approval for these at our next meeting. Thank you. Tim, before I go on to building and maintenance, I wanted to ask, Fallon, did you have a report for tonight? I forgot to ask you before. I knew you were at your game and weren't sure whether you had a report or not.
Yeah. Well, first off, we have homecoming this week. We have our dress-up days. Monday, today was career day. Tuesday is red, white, and blue day. Wednesday is college day. Thursday is superhero day. Friday is class color day. And on Friday, we're going to be having our annual pep rally, and it's going to be held on the turf. And our homecoming dance is going to be hosted outside this year. And we, as student council, we went to Castle in the Clouds and thought of ideas and what we could do for that. So we are getting a bunch of pop-up tents and stringing lights together, and we're going to bring out the speakers. I think Peter might help us with that, with some of their speakers they have up on stage. We're getting chaperones, like teachers, 2 per class for the dance. We're going to have a senior skit for the first time this year. That was an idea that we thought of, along with sports teams. I talked to Mr. Giesler today. They're having one of their first, bigger productions this coming... Yes, Mamma Mia, Friday, November 19th, Saturday, November 20th, Sunday, November 21st. He sounded very excited about that. Every student is very fully involved. They practice 5 days per week, just like any other sports team. They've been practicing in the dance studio. He let me know that they are following all the guidelines, masks. Everyone's still just grateful to be there. Their last performance was January 2021. That was a smaller performance, but they're finally having a full pack show this fall, which is exciting. The middle and high school are included in that. They all participate. I had a meeting with Mrs. Tatro, the principal of the LRTC, this morning. They had their induction ceremony this morning. That was very exciting. All social distancing was happening. Parents were invited for breakfast. There's a lot of positive feedback. There's lots of future field trips that are being planned. There was one this past weekend that the FFA went to in Deerfield. There's upcoming DECA field trips. There's a lot of new staff that we talked about that Mrs. Tatro said she was very grateful and excited for. She's very excited to be back to the new normal. Everyone is doing their part. There were no field trips last year, so she's very excited that students are going to be able to participate and travel this year. All the HOSA students are scheduled to be doing their clinicals, following all guidelines, and they will be going to Genesis in Wolfeboro. There's a lot of in-based learning, computer, and IT. There's Running Start registration starting soon, which is a really great program the high school offers for getting college credits, taking AP classes. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Fallon. I appreciate that. Look forward to your report next month. Thank you. Tim.
Okay, for building and maintenance, we had a meeting back on the 28th of September. Actually, our first meeting in a while, since last school year, I think. So it was nice to get together and talk about some stuff. We discussed the Esser 2 grant and how that's been applied and the funds that are still left. Again, that's already been talked about. Kathy mentioned that a bit ago. We got a little more in depth when we were talking about Esser 3 grant. That's a 2-phase grant. The first round of that is going to be $4,340,310, and the second round would be $2,235,917. That Esser 3 grant, that will, all those funds need to be spent prior to the September 30th, 2024. So we talked about, especially going through the remote and bringing the students back into the schools. You know, what do the schools need? And obviously, again, we're looking for public input, but as far as what the committee thinks, after talking with our building principals and the maintenance folks, the HVAC systems, of course, in the Kingswood complex are great, but in some of the other schools, not so much. Although they did great work during the bringing the kids back, as far as trying to put in special systems in different classrooms and whatnot. But to do a school system for the individual buildings, doing it through the HVAC would be ideal. So we talked about that and thought that's what the committee would recommend. Obviously, again, we're looking for public input, but moving forward towards budget season and that sort of stuff, obviously we wanted to give a little bit of direction for the budget committee. So I know doing the HVAC for all the elementary schools is going to cost quite a bit of money, but there is expected funds to be left over, and as Kathy had mentioned, the dark fiber, because the technology piece in all the buildings still are not quite where we want it, and that would need to be picked up. So those two items is kind of what we're moving forward, and basically the committee thought, at least at tonight's meeting, again, we're waiting for that public input, and again, they can go to the website. Right on the website, there's a spot that you can read about it, and then send in comments. I mean, obviously we might have overlooked something, and someone might say, you know what, this is probably the direction we should go. So we're not ruling anything out, but for now, doing the HVAC system and the dark fiber technology is kind of on the radar for what we're looking for. So basically, we're looking tonight, again, to send a message to the Finance Committee that that's what we would like to see happen, but we want to make sure that if in fact that is the direction that we go, that we would have the support of the entire board. So not that we have to actually have a motion, but just kind of a yes or no, or any input from the board, one way or the other, as far as those two items, would be great. So certainly I would recommend that we move forward with both of those as they're writing for this grant. And if anybody would like to comment or say yay or nay, speak now.
Thank you, Tim. I think certainly those are high priority items. The HVAC systems throughout the building and the air quality and all is certainly something that we need to be right on top of, and I think that's a great use of these funds. And you know, not knowing where things are going, I think dark fiber, if there's money left over, to get internet access to wider communities, I think is certainly a great idea. I think it's also important to remember that the Esser funds, whether it be Esser 1, 2, or 3, these funds have to be used for programs that are outlined, you know, within the grant applications. This isn't money that if we don't spend it, goes back to reduce your taxes. That doesn't happen. This is money, if we don't spend it, the federal government keeps it. So I think it's very important to understand that this money isn't money that the federal government is saying, okay, you can lower your local taxes if you don't spend it. We need to have a program to spend it wisely. I think certainly the Esser 3 money those two are, in my estimation, are very good priorities. Anyone else?
Just if no one has any comments or anything regarding that, again, just the show of support of the board would be great. But we also went on to a couple other things that I certainly would like to share. Our maintenance and custodial staff have obviously worked tremendously over the summer, doing their routine maintenance or some needed repairs, such as some roofs, sidewalks, and some windows. So if you look around the district, there's definitely been some updates to some of the buildings. And we've got one unanticipated repair that's come up, and that's the stairs at Carpenter. So those, unfortunately, will need to be repaired in the next month. So that's about it. And if anybody from the committee wants to say anything that I missed, go for it.
Any other comments on that?
I just have a question.
Krista?
I think the priorities are wonderful. The process in doing that and the time it will take to get, like, the HVAC done, I'm assuming is going to take us into the spring at least.
Yes, this plan will more than likely take us more than a year. So it's not anything that's going to be done right away. First of all, we've got to finish writing the grant.
Okay.
And then once that approval goes through, obviously in writing it, they want to know what we're going to be using the funds for. So that's kind of the direction that we would put in it, as long as there's nothing else that somebody says, wait a minute, this would be much better use of the funds. So that's kind of the direction they'll go, but at least a year, if not to. We've got till September 2024 to get those installed and the funds spent.
Improving the air quality in our elementary schools in particular is, I think, a really great priority.
Okay. All right, we all set with that? All right, moving on, so on the finance, you see the dates that were presented before for the Finance Committee meeting and the budget presentation. And on the human resources, we do have 2 contracts that we are going to be working on. We have administrative contract this year and the support staff contract. And we'll be meeting with those groups shortly to see what we can hammer out on contracts for those. That's all I have. Under closing activities, advanced planning, as Fallon said today, this week is homecoming week. Monday is a day off. That's Indigenous Peoples Day. And then our next board meeting is on November 1st. And we're trying to determine where. I think there's been some discussion. This building probably will not be available because of the play coming up. So we're thinking of possibly having the meeting in the lecture hall in the high school. And there's also a separate room that we could set up for those that don't want to wear masks within the lecture hall during that meeting. And we have plenty of technology there to make that work fine. Okay, we're going to go back to public input. We're going to have 15 minutes of public input. Let me get my phone and timer up. Okay. Okay, and we're going to start. We started out front here last time, so we're going to start in the back. Anyone would like to make a comment?
Tisha O'Keefe, Wolfeboro, can you hear me?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, I'm going to kind of hop all over the place because I didn't write anything, which is kind of dangerous for me, but I'm going to skip a couple things that were super sarcastic and just really kind of get to the guts of what I want to say. First of all, I think it was Stephanie that brought the motion for the what the heck am I thinking of? Quarantine, thank you. So thank you, Stephanie, for that. And thank you for everybody that voted for that. We can't really hear very well from the shower room, so I think that it was voted, but I wanted to read something that comes from the New Hampshire Municipal Association. And I want to encourage everybody that was afraid to go to these meetings or didn't understand the importance, because I was there, and every single time that I've come, it's very empowering, especially when you feel that what you believe in really makes a difference. And all of us back here, we're not domestic terrorists, we're parents, we're citizens, we're community members, we are friends of many of the people that are actually in the other room. We care, and our voices, we want them to be heard. In any case, I just wanted to read this, and I think it's important. It says, part of it, and this is from an attorney that wrote the article, the low attendance at most New Hampshire school meetings show that far too many people, or far too few people, understand their significance. A school district is legally a separate municipal entity on equal footing with the town. Its meetings work the same way. Every one of the above rules still applies. Just erase selectmen and insert school board, and erase town meeting and insert school district meeting. The voters still have all the legislative power. If they don't seem to have all the power, that's only because they aren't exercising it. We need to show up. This was written specifically for special meetings. I can promise you one is coming your way. Without getting into too much, we are exercising our right. We're going to call for a special meeting on this, and I can promise you so many people are on our side. We have 40 to 50 people in here. You have maybe a dozen, and half of them I know are on our side. This is insane. My son, and I know he's watching right now, and I'm so proud of him, texted me earlier saying that his friend texted him wanting to know if I was going to be up speaking because he's proud of his mom. These kids are watching. These kids that are in your school system are watching us. They're paying attention. They'd rather be on their frickin' Xboxes and PS4s. I can promise you, he doesn't listen at home, but he's listening here and he's paying attention here because it matters to him. So other than that, I just wanted to say that, you know, for all of us in here, and I'm sure we all agree, we're tired of being segregated. We're tired of feeling like we're domestic terrorists and that, you know, we're kind of being labeled as anything. We are tired of that. We're a voice of the majority. I can't tell you how many times. I actually just had somebody come up to me, give me a voter list, a voter checklist from a town in this district where the people in that town office were cheering us on and hoping that we would win this. You are not the majority. And it's time to stop treating us different because you may have the power sitting up on there, up on that stage, but you are not the majority. And that's why we stand here and that's why we keep showing up more in force. And we're not going to stop. We're not going to be silenced. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, anyone in this room would like to speak?
Hi, my name is Becca Brownell Smith, and I'm a resident of Wolfeboro, former resident of Middleton, so we've been in the district for a while. I brought both of my children here tonight because I believe that it's important that we need to respect each other's opinions and beliefs about how they want to make decisions, health decisions for their children, but the school board isn't doing this all by themselves. There are parents that do fully support this, and I've had several of my kids' friends come down with COVID, and some have fared better than others. And I don't think it's unreasonable whatsoever to require masks when the CDC is also requiring. I printed off a bunch of stuff tonight, so it's not old information. I'm not sure what the parents and interested parties in the other room would consider a expert opinion. I don't know if the CDC is not in that list or not, but I think they've done okay so far, considering that none of us planned or expected this to happen. And I feel that the school board is doing what's best for our kids in the schools to keep them safe, and they are doing the right thing by keeping the masks on while the transmission rate is high. It's actually not substantial in Carroll County right now. It's considered high, which actually is a level above that. So I'm not sure where the school district is getting the substantial transmission rate from, but I just want to know that you do have support from other parents. It's not just the other way, and I will be at whatever special meeting also gets called.
Thank you. Okay, so anyone else in the back room?
Angie Carver from Wolfeboro. I am just looking for a little bit of clarification. How much weight does the school board take into consideration the opinions of the task force?
What group were you asking about?
I'm asking how much of the COVID task force, the response, how much of their opinion is weighed into the policies?
We'll, you know, this is public input. You could certainly ask questions about that. We look at a lot of different information, not just the COVID task force. There's a lot. We read every piece that comes out from the New Hampshire DHHS, all the changes that they make, as well as the CDC, and we base our decisions on all of that.
Okay. How often does the task force meet?
We've been meeting about once a month.
Once a month? Why is there only public record of meeting, or minutes, the last minutes recorded on your website are from February of last year? Or, sorry, February of this year, 2021?
I would have to check on that. I don't know.
Okay, one more thing just to follow up in response to Mr. Credelli. What was the exact date of the meeting where you said we could find minutes that would give clarification to things that were discussed as far as the Esser funds?
It was our August school board meeting at that point.
August
I'm not-
16th of 2020, or was that August 3rd of, or August 16th, 2021? Or
20
were you
2021.
referring to-
2021.
Okay. There's
Esser-
nothing in those minutes?
The Esser funds were not available prior
There's
to
nothing in those minutes that Kathy specifically said was where we
I
could
looked at
find
them today, so I don't know what to say about that.
I've got them right here. There's nothing in there about the Esser funds.
Okay, well, we'll double check on that and make sure the dates and the information is up on the website properly.
One last thing, is there any way it can be made public when the task force is meeting? Do they take any kind of parental input into any of their considerations?
It's really just a volunteer there's a school nurse and some doctors, and I'm there, the superintendent's there, reviewing the DHHS guidelines, where they are, as well as other information. It's not really a public meeting, it's just a task force.
How do other people get involved in this task force if it's just volunteers done?
Right now, we're really not looking for any other members necessarily. We just, we're meeting, we discuss the DHHS guidelines again, where things are changing, what the current status of the transmission rates are, and bring that information back to the rest of the board, so.
What if a parent had a concern with something as simple as like having an issue with having just one single source that we're using? The single source being the DHHS as far as transmission rates, that like recently has been under fire for being out of date and inaccurate. Where would we bring that concern to?
You can certainly email the school board or the SAU office, superintendent.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else in this room would like to speak? Yes.
Justice for a tall person. Justin Martin. I am a resident and a public servant for the town of Wolfeboro. The last meeting is what spawned me to come here. I understand what it's like to take fire from others that oppose your views. If I were to mute people, turn my back, shut the door, anytime someone came in my office for a complaint on a tax bill, electric bill, town clerk's office, they have a right to speak. And sometimes you just have to take a brutal killing for like 5 minutes, them just cussing you out. Fortunately, that's kind of part of it. I deal with that almost every day. It can be tough, but muting the microphone on people, that should not be allowed. So that really hit a nerve with me on the last meeting when I saw that. And then, segregating them up over there, that just doesn't seem kosher. If people were to come into our office and we had a waiting room for certain people over there and a waiting room for certain people over there, creates a division. This is a public forum. As far as I'm concerned, we're all part of the public. Mask, no mask, all part of the public. And then the second topic I wanted to bring up, I don't know if this is the right area to do this, but over at the Carpenter School, this is total deviating off of the whole mask and no mask thing. How it's working right now, it's like around 3:10 to like 3:45. The parents are picking up the children one at a time. And if anyone's familiar with that parking lot, it is an absolute traffic jam for about an hour. I don't know if someone could look into maybe revising that, because myself, all of the town of Wolfeboro employees, any other buildings in the area, all the people that are parked there are absolutely gridlocked. You cannot get out. It happened last week. They had to coordinate all the people to move all the vehicles just to get to an appointment. There's instances where I've had to meet the ambulance at my own house for my wife. If I was ever locked in there, I don't know how I'd ever get out. I don't know if there's even like a fire hazard. If someone needed to get in there, fire crews can get in there. Union Street turns into a one-lane traffic jam. No one can go up or down at the same time because it's all blocked off. So I'm just putting a request out there, maybe reorganize a meeting spot or a bus pickup and dropping the, picking the kids up in the bus and moving them to somewhere else, somewhere along that lines, because it's quite a mess, and it's at least 45 minutes. We've seen it every day, and we just look at the people, and everyone's on their phones while sitting in the cars, and that's a huge hazard too. I just want to come here and speak my mind on that, but thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, we'll take one more from the back, and then we'll take one more from the front, and then we'll end public input.
Hi, Ronnie Harding. I live in Wolfeboro. I've spoken before a couple of meetings ago, so I'll just remind you that I taught for 36 years, so I have a very special interest in all of these goings-on. I also want to point out that listening to these parents in all my years of teaching in 2 different states, these are honestly the most caring and involved parents I've ever seen in my life, and it makes me want to almost cry because I've been in too many situations where they don't speak out and they don't get involved, and you wonder if they even care. And I am telling you that they care. They care a lot, and they want what is best for their kids and for the students in this community. So do I. And I just wanted to also bring up a couple of things that tie into what happened tonight, things that I'm curious about. First of all, in regards to masks and how adamant you guys are about there being the be-all, end-all, I'm not even going to go into science or anything that I've looked up. That's probably better for another time. But I will say that when the parent mentioned carpenter dismissal, it reminded me that the last time I went by there, I was extremely appalled and disgusted by the hypocrisy I saw in that all these poor little innocent kids were running around in the front and they were wearing masks outside on a beautiful day. I saw 4 adults, not sure whether they were teachers or aides or whatever they were supervising. Not a single adult had on a mask at all, although only 2 of them, I think, had it dangling under their chin. They were not wearing masks, but the kids were. And that's ridiculous. Either you have a mask policy or you don't. The other thing is in regards to someone asking about access to textbooks. I'm very surprised to hear that you don't have all of your textbooks online. My last school where I taught, every single state textbook and major textbook used by the teachers was available to parents online, and all they had to do was just go, and they could look up homework assignments, they could verify something that the students were saying about a project. So I don't know, I'm a little concerned about that. And back to the mask, I'm just wondering if any of you yourselves are required to wear masks for 6 to 7 hours Monday through Friday, as you expect students and staff to do. Thanks.
I just wanted to say that most textbooks are online. What the committee was trying to do was to make sure that for any textbook that was not online, that there was a process in place to make them available.
Thank you, Kristen.
Yep.
Okay, last public input from this room.
Hi, Bobby Budman, Wolfeboro. I just wanted to jump around off of things people have stated through the evening. I'm just going to answer Ronnie right off. The reason why Carpenter, you see the adults outside at the end of the day with their masks down is because the children actually forget they can take their masks off. So most of the time when the children do go outside for recess and at the end of the day, they leave their masks on because they're actually not bothered by their masks. That is something that is more of, you can take it off and go play, and most of them will say, nah, I'm just going to leave it on. It's easier than putting it in my pocket. The more important thing is I want to go back to Glenn Cordelli, who addressed the board, and one of his questions was, how are you going to address student learning? One of the main things why most people in the other room tonight, I think we all want our children to be in school, and I want to hone in on that for a second. The way to keep our children in school is by following the science. And I'd like to thank the board for following the science, for following the DHHS toolkit. I know that it gets updated September 17th, it just got updated again, but I appreciate that that's what you're following, because DHHS is also following. If you go in the toolkit on page 3, it gives its sources, they cite where they're getting the information from. They're following virologists, they're following epidemiologists. They're not following opinions. So we're actually looking at the actual raw data of how to keep our children in school. So thank you for following that. I want to let you know that there is a very large part of the community who is supporting you. A couple weeks ago, I threw out a petition online just to see where people really were regarding this matter, because there was another petition called Breathe on change.org. I'm not sure who posted it, but it was for GWRSD. They had 82 signatures. So I threw one up 3 weeks after theirs, a lot less time to get signatures, and we're already at 162 signatures. If there is a parent or someone in the district who wants to sign that, you can go on change.org and you can type in GWRSD. There are 2 petitions. Make sure you're in the district though, because if you're not in the district and you're signing that, then it makes the petition invalid. Your name will be deleted off of it. So back to Glenn. So Glenn, one of the ways that we can keep our kids in school and we can address our student learning is by ceasing and desisting on these right-to-know orders. These right-to-know orders are going into our classroom, and our teachers who are already a year and a half behind with some of these children. Some of these children in 3rd grade only did a half a year in school before they got there, so they're already behind. Now we're tasking our teachers with going through all their lesson plans, taking pictures of their walls at school. If we're here truly to educate our children, why are we attacking the very people who are there every day, in and out, working on ratios, working on addition, working on reading? This is just one more task that our teachers have to do. I'm going to go off track now, and quickly, Krista, I want to address the dress code that you're talking about. I think now is the time to really talk to the students, which, by the way, Fallon, thank you for being here, a student rep. Go to the students, ask them, because a spaghetti strap is not for boys to look at a girl and go, oh, she's wearing a spaghetti strap. Her shoulders are sexist. So this is a real chance to go to these students. I mean, when we're covering 4th graders' shoulders in school when it was 90 degrees in the spring, why? Why can't these little girls show their shoulder? So this is your chance to really talk to the generation of what they think is sexual and isn't, because it's hurting our girls. And we're treating our girls like sexual objects. And this is your chance to end that. And that, I think, is great. And the other thing I'm going to say is, Frankie says relax.
Thank you. All right, so that's the end of public input for tonight. We do have any board member want to have a closing comment? Okay, the only thing I would say is, again, thank you, Fallon, for being here. Appreciate your willingness to serve on the board, and look forward to you for next meeting. I will now entertain a motion to go into non-public. Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry, Charlene, I didn't see you.
I just remembered what I wanted to say. I think it was a good point to make that whatever petition you're signing, make sure that you are within the Governor Wentworth Regional School District, because someone I know who lives in Tamworth was approached to sign one of these signatures. Excuse me, was approached to sign one of the petitions, and her response was, I'm in Tamworth. So that's just a caution to whomever is gathering signatures.
Thank you, Charlene. Krista?
I don't know that I should share this, but I'm going to, in order to make a point around the masks and how I feel about them. I had a friend who lived in Arizona, and in the middle of August, she and her 4 children moved to Florida. And when they moved to Florida, they start school earlier there. There wasn't a mask mandate. And her 3 triplets, who turned 12 on Saturday, and her other son, who was 14, all started school. They were excited and welcomed in their school. And all 4 of them caught COVID and brought COVID into their home. When they brought COVID into their home, of course their mother needed to take care of the 4 of them. And then she came down with COVID. And she was hospitalized on September 4th. And she died on October 3rd, a day after her kid's 12th birthday. I think we need to be mindful of those things. We have to be mindful that no one wants any of our kids to get hurt. No one wants any of our families to get hurt. We just want to put as many safety precautions in place to take care of everyone. And I think about that, and I haven't been able to stop thinking about it, but there are 4 kids without a mom now. It's just unnecessary. It just doesn't have to happen.
Thank you, Krista. Anyone else?
I just want to acknowledge and thank all the parents who sent us emails ahead of the meeting, voicing their opinions. We did get a lot of emails from parents who are concerned about their kids' safety, and we really appreciate you sharing your voices as well. Even though you can't be here in person, we hear you.
Thank you. Okay, I will now entertain a motion to go into non-public under RSA 91A semicolon 3, paragraph 2, for a legal and a personnel matter. Motion? Second. Motion by Tim, seconded by Dana. Okay, all those in favor. Krista? Tim? Wendy? Stephanie?
Yes.
Dr. Jim?
Yes.
Charlene? Dana?
Yes.
Chair votes aye. We're in non-public. We're going to go into the other room. We'll probably be back here in about a half an hour, give or take, for us to adjourn our meeting. Thank you. Okay, so people don't get too comfortable. I'd ask for a motion to adjourn. Been moved by Dr. Jim, second by Charlene. All those in favor. Krista? Aye. Tim? Wendy?
Yes.
Stephanie? Dr. Jim?
Yes.
Charlene? Dana? Chair votes aye as well. We're adjourned. Thank you.